Some stories are easy to understand, while others take a bit more time. Nevertheless, they are all stories. Will you take the time to hear my story? Welcome. This is the story of my favorite story about stories. The story of Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, or ORV for short. Okay, so what is ORV? ORV is a web novel written by the married couple Sing Chong that went on to have multiple adaptations into different forms of media, such as the ebook and physical hardcover novel, its manhwa webtoon, and also a possible 5-part movie in Korea. Black Box is the artist for the ebook, and Sleepy C is the artist for the webtoon. Okay, so ORV is a story about Kim Dokja, a 28-year-old Microsoft employee who's been reading a very long and boring web novel for over a decade. This web novel, 3 Ways to Survive a Ruined World, or TWSRW, that Kim Dokja loved, soon reached its conclusion, and before he could read its final pages, that story became reality. The fictional characters Kim Dokja read, the crazy powers he saw, the monsters in the world all held within 3 Ways to Survive a Ruined World were pulled from the phone screen and plopped onto the real world. This also included the scenarios, atrocious challenges imposed on every being within 3 Ways to Survive a Ruined World to entertain the constellations, powerful beings who live on the stories the characters suffer through. Now Kim Dokja has to survive and possibly change this world, already knowing of its ending. If that was just a little bit interesting to you, I want you to know that that was just a brief summary. It's nothing compared to the entirety of ORV's marvelous story. Its characters, its world, its narrative, everything from the smallest letter to the biggest arc is just chock full with peaks. So let's start off with the first reason why I love ORV. Its characters. One thing I seek whenever I consume any story is compelling characters. Characters drive the narrative forward and keep our attention onto the story that the author is telling. Without good characters, you'll have an even harder time trying to get people to stay interested in your story. And not even once was I not interested in ORV. Every character is so wonderfully written, bro. All the characters written in ORV have great character development and progression. They're heavily explored and fully fleshed out. The main character, Kim Dokja, isn't the only one receiving development or the only one who's interesting, but every character could be their own main characters in their own stories if the author wanted to. Each character has their own unique mindsets and time to shine. Kim Dokja doesn't carry the show, but shares it with the entire cast. And that's really important when you have a large and long narrative such as ORV. If Sing Chong wrote boring characters with no development or progression, without human qualities and contradictory beliefs, I would have dropped this series by its 10th chapter. Now let's talk about my favorites. Kim Dokja, of course. He's the reader in this series and his character is marvelously done. His arcs revolving around his self-sacrificing nature caused by a combination of his low self-worth and deep love for 3 Ways to Survive a Ruined World are greatly done. I have to say a lot about Kim Dokja and everyone within this series, but I'll leave that for later videos because I'm not trying to make this into like 50 minutes. Second, we have Han Soo-young, another amazing character that I deeply love. She's a great writer who plagiarized 3 Ways to Survive a Ruined World in her own web novel. And due to that fact, Kim Dokja automatically started hating her. She started out as an antagonistic force to Kim Dokja's company, but gradually grew to become an essential companion that can never be replaced. I love her snarky comments and her complex relationship with Kim Dokja and Yoo Jung-hook. Speaking of Yoo Jung-hook, he is the main character of 3 Ways to Survive a Ruined World, and is the most psychotic character I've ever encountered in fiction. Now, Yoo Jung-hook has a stigma called regression. It's basically like Return by Death from ReZero. And if you didn't get it with that reference, then he basically can't die because anytime he does, he'll just restart at the beginning of the scenario / the beginning of the story again. This kid did that for over 1,863 times in his original story. I'm not keeping repeating the title. Just to finally clear all of the scenarios. Bro, Yoo Jung-hook is always on 10, bro. Those thousands of attempts made him into some goldfish suicide bomber, bro. He's always wanted to kill himself, thinking that if he restarts the world, it'll just be better in his next life. Or he's just always trying to kill somebody. And because he regressed so much, he kills anybody and anyone who betrayed him or inconvenienced him in his previous life. He's like a loose cannon that sinks the whole ship. But he's strong though. He's like your typical isekai protagonist, having broken abilities from the jump as well. He's kind of like Subaru in one of the What If stories. Like, if you read them, I never read them, but like he's like a Wrath If or like a Pride If type person. But at the start of the series, as the series goes on, he becomes a really compelling character. I cannot cap. These are the main 3 characters that we focus on throughout the story. But other characters such as Yusak Ha, Uriel, Jung Hee Wong, and more are great as well. Even the villains are greatly written and are in leagues with some of my favorites in fiction. One thing I like about ORV is the realistic approach towards tackling its characters' problems and relationships. Just because they're friends now doesn't mean that they forgot when they were enemies, or just because they were saved doesn't mean they forget the sacrifices that saved them. A character might say something and it hits a nerve. Characters might do something continuously and finally get called out for it. Human relationships, building connections and maintaining them, expressing yourself and understanding the expression of others, communication and how impossible it is to truly understand another person, even yourself. All of this is tackled heavily throughout ORV's run. I love it all. The stories of the characters are the real treat of ORV and have some of the most realistic portrayals I've ever seen in fiction to this date. I love them all, man. So now let's move on to part 2, the world. The world of ORV is so wide and expansive that I could teach damn classes on it, bro. Like, it never ends. Like, new worlds are being created every day, bro. And that's just how great it is. Let's talk about some examples. The system. Every good fantasy story has a great power system, and ORVs are incredible. Now, here's some slight spoilers, but in ORV, they have a system basically built like a video game. You get coins, you put your coins into your stats, and then you get stronger. Simple, right? No, because that's only one way to get stronger in ORV. You can also reject the system and achieve strength that surpasses it by finding your own way. These people are called transcenders. And then later, there's even a narrative shift that reveals another way how to get stronger with an ORV, and it's just absolutely amazing. Next, we have the races in ORV. There's demons, angels, giants, dwarves, little peoples, monsters, beastmen, gods, demon kings, insects, you name it, bro, they got it. And each one of these races interact and have history together, all trying to make their own stories. And in those races, a few become beings that watch the story, consume it, devour it, relish in it, survival of it. They become constellations. Constellations are beings that view the stories of the incarnations, beings who aren't constellations, and they get to choose which story/incarnation they want to support and can influence the outcome of millions of worlds. These beings are seen as the pinnacle of power in the early parts of ORV. And now, if you caught that, then you know there's always bigger fish inside the sea, and ORV always delivers, man. But while constellations love the story, and the incarnations live out those stories, we can't have a story without a storyteller. And the Dokja are those storytellers, beings who control the stories within Starstream, the system that runs the worlds within ORV. And if you catch me saying worlds, not world, then you'll even see that we don't just stay on Earth, but go beyond that later in the narrative in ORV as well. I could go on and on about the world building that Sing Song masterfully crafted, but I just said that for a later video as well. All y'all need to know is, I'm in love with it. Now we have Free the Story. Bro, by now y'all must be tired of hearing me say story this and story that, but ORV really is just a story about stories. And when you read it, you'll start to get why I'm sounding like a broken record. But is it story about stories even a good story? Yes, it is, bro. It is so good that I have to question if a human even wrote this, bro. Like, how are 2 humans capable of creating this masterpiece? Y'all don't understand me, bro. I'm not gonna say a single spoiler when it comes to the narrative because you just gotta go in blind, bro, to get the best experience. So I'm gonna give y'all a figurative representation of what it's like reading ORV. Imagine you're climbing a mountain, right? Just chipping away, climbing higher and higher, and you finally reach the top. Now, this ain't no Mount Everest, but it was a decent climb, and you are proud of yourself for reaching so high up. You think this is a comfortable peak, but then you realize there's another higher mountain right next to you. So you climb that one as well. You climb again and you reach the top. You just climbed 2 mountains in a row. So you start thinking, man, I might try Everest next. So you climb that one next. You reach the highest possible mountain peak in the world and say, now that was a good climb. This is an amazing experience. I'm finally at the peak of the world. But ORV whispers in your ear, nah, bro, You only on chapter 100. My brother in Christ. What? Huh? There's still more? Climb higher? You're like, bro, I'm at the highest point in the world. Where else can I even go, bro? ORV says, get your spacesuit. You're going to space. She's like, bro, okay, back. Start hopping on your spaceship and then reach the moon and like, okay, this is great. It's even higher than I expected I could go. But ORV says, nah, bro, you're only on chapter 200. It goes higher. Start climbing some more. So you're like, damn, we at the moon. I think this is a pretty good place to stop. But ORV is like, hell nah. I'm not even really getting started, to be honest. You feel me? You're like, damn, I guess. Go even further through space. You go past planet after planet, and then you're finally at the end of the universe, the final point, the peak, the pinnacle of the universe. And you're like, man, that was a good ride. And then there's really nowhere to go now. But ORV screams, hell nah, F all that. There's still more to go, bro. You turn in utter shock. There's just no way. How can he even get better than this? There's literally nothing we can do here to make it even better, but there's a higher peak? You go singing Toba and start drilling your way into the multiverse and reach the peak of that. And even still, ORV isn't finished, saying there's still more. I know I'm glazing heavy, but that's what it's like, bro. Peak after peak after peak after peak, banger after banger after banger. It just doesn't stop. Once it gets going, it keeps going, bro. It's like Sing Chong was a 7-star Michelin chef cooking up meals that surpassed the standard in every capacity, bro. I realized ORV was something special from the jump, but chapter 98 through 102 was really solidified itself for me. But what made me start thinking of this as a contender for one of my favorite stories was at chapter 182 to 193. After that, it just keeps getting better and better and better to the point I spent my whole entire summer break reading it. Reading it on the train, reading it at sleepovers, reading it in Coney Island, bro. I read that everywhere. That's how good it was. I love ORV. Like, y'all don't really understand how much I love this story, bro. It's my favorite book to this date. And now y'all might be wondering, what was the soundtrack that I used to read this great story? Was it an original soundtrack created by the fans? Was it a combination of different tracks from multiple different animes or games? Nah, the soundtrack that I used, and to be honest, that I heavily recommend, it's to me the absolute best way to consume the story, is to listen to the full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood soundtrack while reading Omniscient and Reader's Viewpoint. This soundtrack has an array of somber, churchy melodies, but also intense, action-packed tracks, sprinkled with some upbeat tunes and suspenseful, tension-filled notes. I feel like it's the perfect combination of sounds to bring the most immersive reading experience. Whether you read the webtoon, the web novel, or ebook, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood's OST is the way to go for completely enjoying this story. My favorite tracks are up on the screen, and I will link the soundtrack and the link to read the web novel in the description below. There's only an official English release of the webtoon on, Webtoon. However, the web novel has been faithfully fan-translated by a combined effort of both Rainbow Turtle and A Passing Wanderer, passing the torch to Shudder, completely translating all 551 chapters in ORV's main story. The ebook doesn't have an English translation and has some changes/edits from the authors, thus giving us a whole new story for ORV. The webtoon adapts the ebook, so y'all don't really have to worry too much as to try and find the English translation for it. There's also 5 side stories written after the main one ended. However, there is no English translation of any of them that I could find, or is poorly translated, so I would just suggest waiting until the webtoon catches up to it if you want to see what happens after the ending. But if there's anyone out there who works in a translation company, please push for ORV to have an official ebook English translation. Or if there's anyone who knows Korean and English, please can you translate both the ebook and the side stories for me? Please. I would like to read the rest of the story. Please, anybody out there, please translate it. Now, before I leave, let me just say, hello everyone, I'm back from outside the scenarios of everyday life to give you all another video. The last one went pretty well. Thank you all for your comments and great feedback. I will try to get better and make more entertaining content, but most of all, I will continue, if the Lord wills to live, to make content of what I like and want to talk about. So, if the story was really entertaining to you, if you regain just a little of your memories and remember my channel just one more time, then I'll keep making these videos for you until the end of time, for eternity.